a week ago, we were talking about metrics that the mainstream media really wasn't focusing on to give us a full picture of what's really happening in the election. And what I was saying is, if we really look at all the metrics, not just these top line polls, we're seeing indications that Kamala is actually surging in a way that makes it should make us optimistic. We talked about the fact that she's 31 points plus 31 points with youth, the highest youth gap ever. And young people told Harvard that they have a 75% probability of voting, the highest ever. And Republican students were going down in their enthusiasm for voting. Okay, and women. Okay, men prefer the gender gap is huger than ever. Women are plus 21 for Kamala, and men are only plus 12 for Trump. Do the math, and so what I was trying to say is, our voters, right? Our voters are hyper motivated. Our demographics are hyper motivated, and they are strongly tilted towards our candidate. What I want to talk about today are a different kind of metrics, what I call winning the middle. Okay, so not motivating our voters. I'm talking about the people in the middle. And what I have always felt, that national elections in America, now that we're so polarized, are won in the middle. So let's look at some of those statistics. First, let's look at how many Republicans have defected to Kamala. So first of all, a lot of you probably got very anxious at the last New York Times Siena poll that showed them tied. And the narrative was, oh, her momentum has slowed. I knew that was wrong. Well, now the New York Times has her up by 3 points. So the momentum has not slowed. It has continued. And now she's ahead by 3 points. Last month, it was 47-47. But here's the other change from last month. Last month, 5% of Republicans said they planned to vote for Harris. This month, it's 9%. Now, that may not seem like a very big number, going up from 5% to 9%.
Yeah,
but when we have elections decided by 1/10 of 1%, right? If 4% of the Republicans are going from voting for the Republican candidate to voting for the Democratic candidate, it's actually a swing of 8 points, because you're subtracting 4 points from Trump and adding 4 points to Harris.
It's huge. And also, I know I don't mean to get into the weeds, but the poll is really 4 points. But averaging it, they brought down to 3. But what Nate Cohen says is actually almost 4. You see a really nice trend. There's a really nice trend happening.
Yeah, we'll leave it to the New York Times to round against us. But okay, so now let's look at some of these other swing groups. Here's a video on whites with a college degree.
All right, all signs point to this election being incredibly close, historically close. We've been talking about huge structural demographic shifts from who supports whom in the race. We've talked about some that seem to advantage Donald Trump, but there is at least one that's a serious boon to Vice President Kamala Harris. You see him standing right here, CNN senior data reporter Harry Segal, with this information about college grads. Let's start with white college grads.
Let's start with white college grads, because white college grads have been this group that have been moving further and further to the left. All right, this is the Democratic margin among white college grads. Look, Hillary Clinton won him by 5 points. Then Joe Biden won him by 9. Look at this margin that Kamala Harris is pulling up in the polls right now among white college grads. It's an 18-point margin, double the margin that Joe Biden had just 4 years ago. I went back through the record books. This would be the largest win for a Democratic presidential candidate among white college grads in recorded history. That is all the way back since the early 1950s. You could probably go back even further. But the bottom line is that Kamala Harris, amongst this group, is doing ridiculously well, and is one of the main reasons that she has been able to counter Donald Trump's rising support among voters without a college degree. It's because she's doing very well among white voters with a college degree.
What about?
So Joe Biden won the election with 9% of white college graduates. She has 18%, double, a historic margin.
And a shout out to Harry Enton, who's one of my favorite pollsters. He's just so much fun. He always kind of gets it right, and he's also entertaining. And he has a great first name.
So whites with a college degree is one of these swing groups. They have been trending to the left in each election, but they've doubled the margin. Incredible. Let's look at independents. Kamala Harris opens up a 16-point lead over Trump among independents, says a poll in Newsweek. 4 years ago, in October 2020, a month out from the election, Joe Biden led among independents by a similar margin to Harris's current lead with independents and went on to win the election. An IBD TIP poll from October 2020 showed Biden leading Trump among independents by 9 points, with Biden at 48% and Trump at 39%.
16 points.
16 points.
It's incredible.
And the elections really are decided by independents. There's about an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in the country. Their votes are pretty fixed. So the independents, who sometimes are the least informed voters, frankly, least engaged, perhaps, but they're the ones that tip the balance. They are the fulcrum. They are at the center. Okay, the center is what's going to win this election. Okay, and finally, one more metric. Let's look at suburban voters. Okay, in Reuters, Harris overtakes Trump among suburban voters, polling shows. Suburbanites, who make up about half of the U.S. electorate, are as racially diverse as the nation at large, are a key prize. Biden beat Trump in the suburban counties by about 6 percentage points in the 2020 presidential election. Before Biden dropped out, Trump was leading him 43 to 40% among suburbanites in the Reuters poll conducted in June. Harris began closing the gap when she launched her campaign in July and led Trump 47 to 41% among suburban voters in polling across September and October. So again, the elections are won in the suburbs. The people in the city vote blue, the people in the country vote red, and the suburbs is that fulcrum, that center point. And it's fluid, and it's fluid. Before Biden dropped out of the race, he was losing the suburbs.
He was. And that's why it looked like he was going to lose the race.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I just want people to take heart. This is another statistical argument that I'm making, that I've just shown you 4 different measures that suggest that Harris is winning the center. And if you win the center, you win. It's just, that's how the numbers work.
It is. It is how the numbers work. And I do think CNN and the media want a horse race. And they also don't want to be caught flat-footed. They don't want to be caught saying someone's ahead, because then if they're wrong, they lose credibility. So they want to see it as close. But we've been seeing this for a while, and her pulling ahead to 4 points in the Times Siena poll, which traditionally undervalues Democrats. I think we're seeing a real thing. Now, I don't know if I agree with you, John, that it's going to be a massive landslide. But I think she's going to have a significant lead when it's all said and done.
Yeah. So take heart, people.